You've got floor.
Excuse me?
You've got floor.
Oh, I do, okay. Hope you don't mind, I'm gonna stand, just a little easier to project. Board members are on this side, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have their reports?
I have the reports
Okay.
right here. I'm gonna put these away and just have to take one and pass it out, please.
I don't know if it matters, but it doesn't New York Yankees watching.
They better not.
I don't know, I just, to be fair.
Definitely not.
I mean, for the Red Sox, I don't know if you.
No, I got that.
Oh, really? I do want to mention, you guys would have met, the part of it was involved in our engagement with his name is Bruce Paulson. He died unexpectedly 2 weeks ago and was going to probably come and at least kind of be on the sidelines here. So we were kind of in shock in the office. So I'm kind of filling in here. I wasn't part of this audit per se. I've gone through everything. I think I can answer most of your questions if you have any. I know you guys have gone through an internal audit report before, so I'm not going to go through all the first couple of pages. It really is just about what this entails, 8 categories that are looked at. If you go to the third page, it's got a little grid that shows what we were looking at and how we had rated everything in our risk management. We had some on site. The only thing I noticed as I was sitting out there, that it looks like the technology wasn't done this year. It looks like they picked up the school lunch program this year, so that got flip-flopped, and you guys don't have to have an internal audit after this year. So, if you go to the next page,
You don't have to have an internal audit anymore?
They changed the guidelines that under 1,000 students, you do not need an internal audit.
it's 1,500. So actually, it's really a lot of schools. So a lot of little schools around here are never going to.
Who's supposed to take care of what you're doing right now?
Well, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure. They actually were trying to legislate it, have it taken away from everyone, have no schools be required to do it. And the New York State Society of CPAs were able to get it, so at least it was 1,500. But I agree with you. I think there's a really good function. This audit, you do a lot more detail than you do on bigger audits. Now, obviously you can do it. It's just, it's going to be your call. You're not required to do it. But that's going to be, whatever you guys decide, we discuss it down the road here. But you're not required by New York State. So the first area we looked at was the purchasing and expenditures. Made sure, want to make sure that you're following process, following policies and procedures. We took 60 disbursements from September 2012 to November 2012. And the following were what we found. We found that 9 of the 60 disbursements didn't have a purchase order or claim form attached to it. The majority of those were within the school lunch fund, and they could easily have been remedied if blanket purchase orders had been done at the beginning of the year. So I think that's an easy one to fix.
Which we've already had.
You have already done, so that's great to know, because that really is an easy fix.
So that's not correct?
Yeah. So from here on for next year, you shouldn't have that problem with those particular ones. The next little group we found 4 that had purchase orders that were completed after the invoice date. And the explanation I saw in the file, there were some online purchases and some emergency purchases. Well, that happens. Emergency purchases, one thing we would suggest is maybe document as an emergency. So just so that you have some background, to show that that's why that happened. And then one of the disbursements did not have an invoice attached, just a claim form. And this looked like it was kind of one of those oddball ones. It looked like it was a field trip, and they went out to Ponderosa, the kids, and paid for the meals. And for some reason, they never got the receipt on it to attach it. So that was another one that's probably an easy one to fix if you had to do it. So what we recommend, obviously, purchase orders should be completed before the item or service is ordered. And I mentioned on the emergency one, just make sure that you document. I think if you document the emergency, they're going to happen. It happens to everybody. And then multiple disbursements should have an invoice attached to it. That's an easy one to do too. We also did test bidding. We took vendors over $20,000, and I'm happy to say we had no findings on that particular. It looked like it was being done according to policy. The next area we tested was payroll and personnel. We took 40 employees from December 31, 2012 payroll, got approved payroll notices, recalculated gross pay, And for teachers, we made sure that their certifications were up to date in their file, and we reviewed time cards and sub sheets for hourly employees. We didn't find anything on that particular test. We did note that that the payrolls weren't certified and reviewed by the superintendent. We do recommend that they're reviewed, signed off on, just to make sure that there's nothing, that looks funny in there. So
That's what we just voted on, James?
Yes.
yeah, so that's and the next area we did the extra classroom fund. I'm just going to say, qualify by saying that probably every internal audit you do, you're going to see a similar type of findings. However, the school has really, the New York State Department's really pushed on this because it is an area that could easily be, have things going on. There's a lot of cash involved. You have student leaders doing it. There's just a lot of people involved in this. So, this is it's an important one. First thing was the New York State Ed Department came out with pamphlet number 2, which is their kind of their Bible on the extra classroom, and that came out in 2008. So that's the first thing. I make sure that we have one of those on file and on hand, and that they're being followed as close as you can on it. So the first area, we examined deposits. We found that they didn't have a lot of supporting documentation. New York State Ed, this is what it looks like here. This finance pamphlet here, they have various forms in here you can use. One of them they show is a profit and loss form that really the students should be doing for every activity they have. They should show the number of items sold, the dollar amount per item, and then you can calculate it out and see that it matches up the deposit. It doesn't explain why there's a difference there. And then also, they can put their disbursements on it. They can kind of see if the fundraisers are money makers or not. It's just a nice form to have that. For future classes down the road, they can pull in and out and say, well, you know what, that wasn't a good fundraiser, didn't make any money, or whatever, And also, the other thing was receiving reports, and this is really common, but either the advisor or the students will get the items in, but they never get the receiving report down to the central treasurer. Well, then the central treasurer gets the invoice and writes the invoice, but doesn't really ever make sure that all the stuff was received. And that's an easy, once again, that's just getting them to get that paperwork walked down to the central treasurer. And when it came to New York State tax, sales tax, this is when you have your extra classroom fund, any activities you have, most of them, unless you're selling specific types of food, it's subject to sales tax. So you should be collecting sales tax on it. You should be getting a resale certificate because what we're finding also is that you buy the items to resell, they pay tax on it. You really can get a resale certificate, not have to pay sales tax on it. You send it to the vendor, and then you collect the sales tax and remit it to New York State Sales. Now, I didn't see anything in the file that indicated that this wasn't happening at all. So I'm not positive, just from our records here, if there was sales tax actually remitted. But you should be making sure you do that for those items. And then we had a question. I noticed there's some documentation that the central treasurer was asking was the varsity club, and it's been kind of hanging out there, no activity. Just wasn't sure what to do with it. Well, this pamphlet once again addresses it. Close it out, just transfer it to the student council fund. That's what we usually do. Next area we reviewed the food service and school lunch fund. We looked at the school lunch inventory process, and also then we took some free and reduced lunch applications, 30 of them, and checked to make sure that they had been calculated correctly. The inventory was fine. The process looks good. In the free and reduced for lunch, we just found one of them that had an exception on it, and it just looked like the revenue was, their income was picked up incorrectly. It looks like, this was pointed out to the school manager, by the way, and she was making sure that it was going to be adjusted, but it did look like it was a classified screen that showed probably reduced. So. The last area we just looked at was transportation, and in this one we're just making sure that the bus drivers have current CDL licenses and that everything's up to snuff with the drivers. And I'm glad to say we have no exceptions on that either. Entertain any questions if you have any.
Can you cover that again with the sales tax? If they're selling stuff for fundraisers, do they still have to collect?
They have to collect
Have to
sales
collect the
tax.
tax.
Anything that's kind of, yeah, anything that's more or less like a business activity that you would, out in the real world, so say, you know, if you were having to collect sales tax,
Right.
it's kind of, that's the way the student loan, or the, I'm sorry, the, that extra classroom fund is.
I just thought it was tax exempt, but I didn't.
Yeah,
realize.
no, I know what most people do, it's not uncommon, it's a, but it is a taxable event.
Are there any other questions?
Well, thank you very much.
Nice to meet you, thanks for coming. We're sorry about Bruce.
Well, thank you,
Sorry
that
to hear
was
that.
a shock to us, and I don't know, probably none of you guys need Bruce, but, yeah, you guys would have him. He's a good man. So I thank you very much, and good luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.